People act like it's wrong to want fame. You think anyone who's famous didn't want to be famous? Do you think Meryl Streep didn't want to be famous?
Hi, I'm Ramona Shelburne, and you're listening to the Let's Talk Clip podcast, where we follow along and react to the FX series Clipped. Just a reminder, these are spoiler-filled conversations, so if you haven't watched the show yet, you might want to hit pause on this and go check it out on Hulu. Today, we're talking about the third episode of Clipped, titled Let the Games Begin. In episode 3, TMZ publishes the tape of Donald Sterling's racist tirade. The Clippers players and coach Doc Rivers scramble to decide if they will boycott their playoff game. Meanwhile, Stiviano starts building her brand. Joining us on the podcast today, the woman, the icon, who plays Stiviano, Cleopatra Coleman.
Thanks for having me.
And CP3, the man who plays the captain of the Clippers, Alphonse Nicholson.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Cleo, when you first read the scripts and you were approached about playing this character, what was your take on who Stiviano was and what you could bring to this role?
Well, Gina's such an amazing writer, and I remember very distinctly in the first scene that we see her, she was described as someone who has a lot of charisma that pretty much everyone ignores. And that was like a huge key for me. And it just described so much of what was going on with her. And I just ended up having a lot of compassion for her, also just finding her really fascinating and interesting. And I was rooting for her.
How much research did you do for this role before you dove in?
I did do some research on V. It was my first time playing a real person. But it's kind of interesting to get to play someone where there's like video and imagery and stuff that I could actually look up and try to reference the voice and get ideas for makeup and, you know, think about how I want my hair done and my manicure even. It was really cool to be able to have like details like that. And I remember thinking, oh, I remember this. And it didn't take me long to completely remember V and just the surface idea of her, which we kind of like scrape off in this series and reveal a lot more about her as a human being.
So we're going to switch over to Fonz. What do you remember about this whole thing back in 2014? Where were you? And then how did this project and this role come to you?
Yeah, so, man, I definitely remember it just because Chris Paul is from North Carolina and it was kind of the talk of the town, and him being the advocate that he was at the time to change that situation was really cool to see. I was in New York and I was just working as an actor. I was a street drummer in the subways of New York at the time, and so it was all entertainment for me. And this role came to me by way of Alexa Fogel, who is an amazing casting director. And she just told me, hey, I think you will be great for this part. I know you're from North Carolina. I know you are familiar with Chris Paul and his legacy and what he's built. And so I want you to send in the tape. And I did. And similar to Cleopatra, you know, having not played a real person before, just a little nervous about that process, but understanding like, hey, of course, I'm not going to be exactly who Chris Paul is, but I can just bring the mannerisms and book the role, and the rest is history.
What is it about Chris that you related to in real life and also in this show?
In real life, being a father and understanding wanting to create a legacy for your family and for your children, and being from North Carolina, knowing that it's a small town compared to a lot of other places, compared to LA, compared to the larger places in the world, in America. And so being able to come from a small town and build a life for yourself, I could relate to that. Basketball, there was nothing we can relate to. I'm not a basketball player by any means, but able to make it look good, you know. And then with the role, but also the leadership. I try to find myself to be a leader in certain situations, and whether that's my cast or whether that's the friend groups that I belong to, just always holding myself to a certain standard. And CP3 does that no matter what team he's on. And so it was very awesome to be able to put that on screen, you know, in a way that's very relatable, that I think to audience members and also to the people who are familiar with his journey. You know, I just wanted to make sure I was as similar to that as possible.
This is for both of you. In this episode 3, the tape is out. There's no going back to the way things were for any of the characters. For both of you, how do you describe your character's reaction to the tape's release and the decisions they're forced to make afterwards? We'll start with Cleo.
Well, for V, or for the character of V in the show, this is a time when I felt, when I was playing her, that she was starting to see what she thought was like everything she ever wanted starting to happen. And it was feeling like the fame and the attention was a pointer towards perhaps winning in court, and like perhaps everything she ever wanted coming true, becoming a star, becoming important, becoming a known person in the world. And I think, as an actor, this episode in particular, it was really about the subtext and really the inner workings of V and her motivations that you maybe aren't seeing up front but are happening inside. It seems really surface level, everything that she wants, but really where I was approaching it from was a place of like needing to survive. I was playing it like this is someone who's had her own back her whole life, who doesn't have anything else to fall back on. And, it's eat or be eaten. The stakes are pretty high. And I also was delving into the idea of her inner child sort of being at the wheel of the bus, and that's where some of the, I guess you could say, defensive behavior comes from. There's not a lot of awareness outside of her own bubble, her own journey.
So how many games we gonna sit out? One? Whole series?
Maybe more.
Until the league does something about Sterling.
How about till racism ends?
Yeah. Why is it on us?
Fonz, this is the scene where you and the rest of the Clippers learn what's really on that tape. And you have a team meeting at the ballroom up in San Francisco.
If we go out there, my kids go ask me why I'm playing for a man who smiled in my face while saying all those disgusting things behind my back. But if we let them take everything we done grinded for, I don't want them to see me get up. I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. I want to fucking win.
It is one of the most emotionally powerful scenes in the show. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on how you react to seeing it now on film.
It was obviously a very potent scene that came with some very real truths. And it's just things that we have to constantly think about today as Black men, and sitting in that circle, although we're not athletes, you can relate to their sentiments, And so I think it was just a well-written scene by Gina and her team. And then Francesca, our director, she was just really amazing working with her. And so that day just happened. I just happened to have that emotional moment. And although it wasn't quite written that way, it turned out, I think, very powerful, And so it landed in a way that I'm glad we captured it, and that it, some things don't make it. So it was one of those things where I walked away and I felt really good about the scene. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, what was that conversation like, for CP3 and his team? And I can only imagine that it was probably emotional. Want my ring, man. Want my fucking ring, yo. And what I just wanted to layer in there was the fact that he still wants a ring, he still wants to go after his dream. And a part of him feels like I'm not letting anything stop me, not even racism. So very powerful scene, mixing that past with the present and allowing us to feel it here, now.
I feel like that scene really sets off the rest of the show, like the trajectory that a lot of characters are going to feel throughout, which is, did we do the right thing? Did we do enough? Did we say enough? Could we have done something different? And I think in that scene, I think you capture that really profoundly of, I still want to win a ring, right? Like, I don't want this to derail me. But I'm curious also, like, what was it like with the other actors in that room?
It's cool because we're all peers, and so we've seen each other come up in this industry and through this space, and some having more experience than others. But really being able to share a space with young actors, young up-and-coming actors, and to just push out the work, and there's no competition there. There's no sense of one trying to up another. It's just like, hey, let's do really good work, and let's all come to work and be prepared today. when you're in a scene with Lawrence, you don't want to be the kind of one that's goofing around and being immature about it on that day. You want to be, on point and understand that there's an etiquette that comes with it. And most of the time that etiquette is just saying the line and breathing and making sure you're breathing. So everyone was doing that. No one ever stepped on anyone's toes or made someone feel less than. And so it was really great to be in a room full of guys who could pretend to be competitors, but not be competitive at all.
One of the things I think with this time in the show is the team is still trying to figure out how to play, but there's also this intense pressure on every single player to react and do something big. In real life, I think Chris was getting hit from everyone. How much did you understand about the pressure that they were feeling externally? So there's the internal pressure of how you feel when you hear the tape, and then there's the external pressure that you feel from just everyone texting you, calling you, all that stuff.
Yeah, I think when people watch this episode and watch the show, they'll see that Gina and her team did an incredible job of depicting that. The external pressure it was crazy. By the time they got to that next game, there's all this press and obviously the Twitter of it all, the memes of it all, social media. And so a lot of pressure on these gentlemen to, yeah, come out and say something, what they're going to do. And that's not their job, right? At the time, that's not their job to make this decision. They're thinking about their livelihood. They're thinking about how to take care of their families. And so we can only imagine what that pressure was like. If I was to compare it to something, it would probably be like FedEx and having a manager who's just treating all the black guys different than the white guys. And it's like, what's that about? And having to have a meeting with your guys at FedEx. And so that was a real life situation that's happened for me. And although it's not the NBA Player Association, I did feel like, hey, we stood up to somebody that we felt like was causing issues or not respecting who we were. I understand it to a certain extent and understand wanting to be quiet, but also understanding somebody who wants to say, forget that. I want to stand up and make something happen.
Okay, so let's go to the other scene in episode 3 that I think is fairly iconic. In my mind, everybody is going to be ordering this costume for Halloween. And that is when the tape comes out. The paparazzi have gathered around V's house in Beverly Hills. She has this moment, like the stage is finally hers. And she decides to roll on out in some roller skates. Keep that shit on like a
Dude, I am not that good at roller skating, it turns out. Like those skates, you don't understand. I can rollerblade, but rollerblades go up to your ankles. These skates are like sneakers with wheels, so there's no support. And so I'm like going down this driveway. It was kind of awkward, but I think we could lean into that. I just think that's such a funny choice on her part that showed like a lot of humor about fame and just about the whole paparazzi situation. And then it was also really bizarre to film too, because we had pretend paparazzi, but then we'd also had some real paparazzi on set. So it was really kind of confusing at times about what was real and what wasn't. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, obviously that's like very iconic. It's something that everyone really remembers. So I was excited to wear the visor and the jean shorts and my roller skates.
It's an amazing scene, and you couldn't write it any better than she really did it in real life. But Gina might have. Gina might have written it better, because the conversation that you have with Deja and the argument you have with her, I think, is a really powerful one and kind of encapsulates all the stakes that are there for V at that moment.
Why won't you come out and say Donald's a racist?
What are you talking about? Look at my Instagram. #BeTheChange. #NoHate.
You are a black woman. Why won't you say it hurts to hear him talk about us like that?
You weren't hurt when he was buying your spicy meatballs at Rock Sugar. When he bought you a Louis Vuitton coin purse.
There isn't a soul in America who hasn't earned from a Donald Sterling. That's the way it is. I never judged you. But if you're gonna put out a tape, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Klansmen in the room.
So the scene with Deja is the scene where their friendship kind of dissolves because Deja is trying to let V understand the reality of the situation. It's something that she's not very focused on. She's very much focused on other things and like her survival and those things that I mentioned earlier. And I thought it was a beautiful scene. Like, I really loved that speech. I loved the idea of, like, what's so wrong about wanting to be famous, and the way that she's justifying herself, I thought was really food for thought. And then it's just kind of absurd. She's got this posse of people that she's kind of hired to hang out with her, and it's funny. And that's also what I love about this show, is it's as poignant as it is like bizarre and funny, and it'll make you cry and it'll make you laugh.
I'm going to go back in time a little bit. I know we're talking about episode 3 in this, but we haven't really talked about the one scene where everybody is in there together, which is the white party scene from the opening episode. And I know that must have been really fun for everyone to shoot, but it's also V gets to interact with the players, and the players get to interact with Shelley and Donald, and everybody's all in the same place at the same time. What was it like for all of you guys to be in that together and have scenes together in that one very surreal, strange space?
Anytime you're filming a big scene and everyone's there, it's really exciting. It was like, the table read day, where everyone's there and it's all coming together, and it was cool to just see everyone embody their characters. And yeah, it was really fun.
It was incredible. It was a day where you end up in one of those Hollywood hills that you've never been to before, and you're at this massive house, and it's like, okay, whose house is this? And we had a couple times like that, for me anyway, where it was like, man, this is crazy, but these people live these lives every day. Donald Sterling, this was his lifestyle for a long time. But for us, it was really fun too, being able to dress up in all white and have a little party on set. You got to be careful. Remember not to eat the food and stuff like that, no matter how good it looks. But it was fun, and they had the fake Madonna.
In a rhythm to a Curtis blow. Who wants to think when features go?
And all the things that come with TV magic. And so great couple days on set, an amazing view.
I know. I remember that house out in Malibu. I was thinking the same thing, Fonz. I was like, whose house is this in real life? Right? It was the spot. I want to ask you guys about one of my favorite scenes. And I still, like, every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, it's so true to life, but it's also still gives me the shivers, is when Donald comes in the locker room and Cleo, this is your green dress moment.
This is my assistant, V, with the beautiful birthday gown.
Hey, we're acquainted.
But it's one of the things that strikes me about the locker room scene is V understands that she's violating a sacred space here too. Like when she walks in the room and the players are this is their sacred locker room space, she actually shows some hesitation. And I'm wondering just how uncomfortable that scene was for you guys to film, what your thoughts and emotions were about each of your characters in that spot, and just sort of what it said about Sterling in general and how he saw the team.
Well, that scene's like for V, for my character, it did feel like a great example of her position, to be involved with someone that you don't agree with everything that they do, but you are linked to them and dependent on them, and you have your own reasons for that, and you're participating, but you're conflicted and not able to really act on that. You don't really have power in the situation. It was all of that. And then for me, like, Lawrence made it so incredible because the way he came in and told everyone to get out really, like, felt very real.
Everybody out.
Okay.
Calm down. This is my fucking team. You don't like it, stay in your office.
You get the fuck out of here.
Okay, Papa Bear.
I told you we shouldn't.
And then aside from that, just the filming of it was really fun because I got to hang out with Ed and Lawrence and all the players at the same time, which didn't really happen a lot. But yeah, it's also like a very, very uncomfortable situation, and you could definitely feel it. We had a lot of actors that were maybe day players that were featured in that scene that were in vulnerable positions. So that also made it feel really real. And then just the way that Donald puts her in the middle of it, asking her questions about the players, and she's answering because she really wants to, be a good student, but at the same time, it's not really her place. And he's leading her into this, and it's very complicated. So I think it's an interesting scene, and it's, to my knowledge, true to what happened.
Yeah, that day it was intense, Like I said, a great one of my good friends, Blair Underwood, said to me once, he said, man, your neurological system does not know you're acting. It's just not that smart. He said, so you can know that, hey, I'm here today, whatever, but as long as you're breathing, your brain and body starts to process those things and feels those things. And so, we felt it that day, having to see, DeAndre or whoever kind of had their arms squeezed and how these guys were feeling. And it was disturbing to see. Because we're professionals, it was less disturbing to shoot. But shout out to the people who also, they had to be the bad guy. Ed O'Neill, when you're around him, you will see he's completely different than Donald Sterling. You will see that the people who were, in that room that had to do those scenes that day, where they were just doing their job. And so it wasn't easy for anybody. But I think it's important that we show those parts of the story too.
Why do you think Donald Sterling felt it was okay to go in a locker room like that? Why do you think he felt he could behave in that manner?
That's a huge question, because you're talking about like the conditioning of racism and why is that? I mean, I could go on and on for hours. It's hard to even answer that question. I think he kind of answers it on the tape, though, a little bit. That's how he feels. There's a lack of respect and a sort of entitlement to space that is very disordered and racist, very racist.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. It's just extremely racist, extremely privileged. And then obviously there's a lot of other things beneath the surface that we all know to be true about certain people. And then when you add a lot of money, a lot of power, they feel like they can utilize that even more. And feel like they can get around those situations. And so Donald's not the only one. That's what I really love about this story, is that it's going to shed light on a lot of people who move throughout the world like this. You'll see people who disagree with it the most are probably those who agree with Donald and his way of living, the people who are not as happy with the series. But I feel like it's going to hit the nail on a lot of things, and it's nothing new. It's not like we don't understand what racism is. It's not like we don't understand the culture of it and where it comes from and how it makes its way throughout America and all other parts of the world, and I think it's going to take a long time to fix it, but I think it's stories like this that bring it to people's attention, and it helps try to find a solution for the racism that is not only in sports, but that's within our daily lives.
Cleo, you have so many scenes with Ed. Obviously, it's a very fun thing for us to watch as the series unfolds. But what was it like doing scenes with him? What was it like doing the show with him? I mean, he's a kind of a jokey guy, but also in this role, so he had to cross some lines.
Ed is such a wonderful person. And it was so funny that, a lot of our bigger scenes, like reenacting the tape, the recording, that was in the first week. It might have even been day one. Like, there were just a lot of big things up front that we had to tackle. And a day into it, we were already like bickering like father and daughter. Like, we'd known each other forever. It just happened like immediately. So I feel very comfortable with Ed. I feel like I've known him my whole life, maybe because I've been watching him on TV for a long time. But maybe it's just something to do with our personalities. We just get along. And he's just got the best stories. He's so supportive. And I loved working with Ed.
What was your relationship with Jackie like?
Oh, Jackie is such a mischievous little thing. I love her so much. She's an Australian icon, so it's really cool to work with her, obviously being Australian and everything. But she was really fun because there's obviously a lot of our characters don't like each other, and that's always hard to do because I really like Jackie, but she made it fun. Like, she would poke her tongue out at me, or she'd flip me off, or we would just make it sort of mischievous and fun and very Australian. So she made it good, and I love her dearly. She's an amazing actor.
She really is. When I was first reporting on this, the reason why I always thought this should be a show is like the Shelley character. It's such a great role for an actress to sink her teeth into. Like, I think she ran with it. And you have to not be afraid to be disliked.
And she's powerful. She is small of stature, but she has a powerful gift of performance. And she embodies these very strong characters so well, seemingly with ease, but obviously behind the scenes it takes all these little tricks. But, she is just such an incredible actor, and I have so much respect for her. So it's really cool to see her nail this role.
Hey, let me do a quick little lightning round. This is just some kind of for fun at the end. We do it on each episode. Aussie, kind of whatever just pops into your head. Who is the cast member most likely to laugh during a serious line? We'll start with Cleo.
Ed.
I'm going to say DeAndre Sheldon. Yeah, he'll get you a good laugh in.
What's something you do for good luck? Do you have any superstitions or routines before a big audition or performance?
Oh yeah, I always pray. To act with specificity and electricity and authenticity. It's so weird. I have to do it every time. Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah, I may have a little cup of coffee or something. Yeah, I don't have too many traditions or anything that I do, but I do have my routines though, and yeah, they're just private routines.
Oh, it's proprietary. I like it.
I gave mine away.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I had one too when I was a softball player, so I always had my little I have to touch the bat 4 times this way and 3 times this way, and then I had to I had to say some things under my breath, and I think in the show, Chris Paul's character obviously has some superstitions. JJ has some superstitions. A
lot of basketball players do that. They have their little thing. They have to do it before they go on court or practice, whatever.
Next one. What's your comfort TV show?
Right now, I'm watching Hacks. The new season of Hacks.
That's a good one.
The Cosmos. I love to watch The Cosmos. Even just to have it on, in the background if I'm doing something else.
My wife loves Beyonce. She's a huge Beyonce fan. So we'll turn on Homecoming on Netflix at any time and just kind of let it play and listen to her music and when we're out in the house. But my wife, she's a huge fan of all the housewives shows. So I find myself trapped in watching those sometimes. But then recently we watched Shogun on FX, and it's really, really good. And it made me very proud to be part of the FX family.
What is the worst costume or hairstyle that you've had for a role?
Oh, okay. I did this soap opera when I was 17 called Neighbours. It's Australia's longest running soap opera. And it was during the time, I think it was the indie sleaze time. And it was when people were doing these coiffs.
Coiffs?
Where you tease your hair and comb it back. Oh, yeah. So bad.
Crazy. I've had some pretty cool hairstyles for the work. I've done blonde, which was really cool for P-Valley, and I've done blue and all sorts of things, which was really cool. What I am excited about, though, is being able to wear my beard for Chris Paul, and now people want me to keep it for other shows. I'm like, great, skincare. Let me keep not have to shave so often. So yeah, I don't like to shave. So when I have to shave all the time on the show, that's my least favorite thing to do. Costume wise, I always end up in something pretty cool with P-Valley, and then Clippers. We were in lounge, Nikes, and all the great things over there. It was pretty comfortable.
Do you have a favorite basketball team?
I don't know if I have a specific team, but I love the Women's League. I think that's really cool, and the movement that's happening now to observe is really, really cool. I saw the same thing with women's soccer last year.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting. So, yeah.
I'm a huge LeBron fan, so I love the Lakers. Anywhere he goes, that's kind of my team. Obviously, we're sitting on a couch right now, not participating, in these playoffs. And man, I was wanting the Clippers to go. I was like, that would be such great press for our show. But they did exactly what they do in the show, which is they lost, unfortunately. So I guess they are imitating life. But yeah, LeBron, I'm a huge fan of LeBron. But right now, I'm a huge fan of Anthony Edwards, too. What he's doing in the league, the things that he's doing is it's incredible.
All right, I want to let you guys wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us, Cleo and Fonz.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
This episode was hosted by Ramona Shelburne and produced by Megan Coyle. Our associate producer is Gus Navarro. Our line producer is Kat Sankey. Sound design by Ryan Ross Smith and Sean Howard, and original music by Hannes Brown. Preeti Varathan is our head of audio. Our head of development is Kati Fernandez. Our head of talent relations is Chantre Kamak. Our executive producers for 30 for 30 and ESPN Films are Marcia Cook, Brian Lockhart, Burke Magnus, and Heather Anderson. Our ESPN audio team includes Megan Judge and Devin McGowan. Special thanks to Rosalind Bibby at FX and Greg Bergman at ESPN LA Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Episodes of Let's Talk Clip drop every Tuesday until July 2nd.